oncologist is bone scan. See, in bone scan, most of the time, most often what happens is when you see a hotspot, you jump into a conclusion that it is metastatic. See, and when it is negative, you think that there is no metastasis. Both are wrong. All that is hot is not metastatic. All that is cold is not benign. So, a hot thing need not be malignant always. A cold thing need not be benign always. A pure lytic metastasis will not show osteoblastic activity. A pure uh, sclerotic metastasis may not be active on PET. So, as of now, there is no radiopharmaceutical which can clearly say whether it is metastatic or not. For that, we need to see the probability increases. It is a matter of probability only. So, we should know in depth of how the process is happening and how we can say what is the probability, how can we use combined imaging, how can we use the knowledge of radiology, nuclear medicine, molecular medicine to come to a conclusion and treat the patient accordingly. I have seen many cases of lytic metastasis missed on a bone scan, even by experts. That was with MDP. I have seen many cases of benign findings documented as metastatic because of that time there was no fusion imaging. So always it is go by evidence. When you have a solitary metastasis, if you have a multiple metastasis, most often it will be clear. But when you have a solitary lesion, go for combined imaging, SPECT CT, or when you don't have a SPECT CT, the planar image of the gamma camera should be read in connection with the X-ray. So it is the combination of both morphology and metabolism which will help you in identifying what pathology it is, whether it is benign pathology or malignant pathology, and thereby it will guide you whether to irradiate the patient, whether take it as metastatic and treat it for with palliative intent, or take it as benign and treat it with curative intent. Recently, I came across a CT scan showed multiple uh, relatively lytic areas in the ribs. They gave it as lytic metastasis, and the patient came for PET CT. And when I did PET, it was all ground glass opacities. And in the bones, it was a case of polyostotic fibrous dysplasia. So, it's in a case of CA breast, it was polyostotic fibrous dysplasia. We should not forget that benign things, two, three pathologies can coexist together. Yes, this is relatively uncommon, but not absent. So, common things first is first taught. At the same time, when you are upstaging a disease, don't jump into it. And when you are upstaging a disease, especially with one or two lesions or oligometastatic, be sure that you are really you are upstaging the disease. Once you upstage, it is only palliative intent, not curative intent. For that reason, I have taken bone scan in and how it correlates with histopathology. So, what are the agents used? Methylene diphosphonate. This methylene diphosphonate was invented by an Indian and fluorine 18. This methylene diphosphonate goes and it's a diphosphonate. It is like what you use zoledronate regularly. It is PCP bond. So it is like this these pharmaceuticals goes and bind to newly forming bone and bind to the hydroxyapatite crystal, and that is not absorption, it's adsorption. Fluorine 18 replaces the hydroxyl ion and it forms fluoroapatite. So, methylene diphosphonate goes and adsorbs to the hydroxyapatite crystal. Fluorine 18 goes and replaces the hydroxyl ion and forms fluoroapatite. These are the commonly used radiopharmaceuticals for bone scan. MDP is methylene diphosphonate. Fluorine 18 sodium fluoride is for PET. Technetium MDP is for gamma camera. In a regular bone scan, we see three phases: vascular phase, blood pool phase, and delayed phase. The vascular phase is nothing but it is similar to an angiogram. It is where the disorder is any disorder characterized by increased number of matured blood cells, such as vascular malformations and hemangioma. You see, increased flow phase. So rapid accumulation relative to non-diseased areas. So for angiogram, like flow phase, we have to inject and see that the patient is on the couch, and you have to inject on the couch, and you have to take immediately images. Blood pool phase. This is like contrast enhancement. Why it does the blood pool phase happen? Because this is due to leakage of radionuclide from blood into soft tissues. Leakage is greatest in two tissues, granulation tissue and neoplastic tissue. The reason is both granulation tissue and neoplastic tissue are characterized by new small blood vessels, that is uh, neovascularization. This neovascularization only we are targeting with bevacizumab and all. So this neovascularized tissue has leaky capillaries. So there will be leakage of the contrast. That's why malignancies and inflammatory conditions like tuberculosis, they enhance because they have leaky capillaries. Now you understood enhancement is nothing but it is because of neovascularization. Neovascularization, we have the real reason for enhancement is leaky capillaries. The reason for leaky capillaries is neovascularization. Without knowing, all of you are already targeting or using bevacizumab or Avastin, whatever it is, that is ramucirumab, all these to prevent angiogenesis. Neovascularization, new capillaries are very leaky, and soft tissue edema and neoplasms and inflammatory reactions, as well as increased signal on T2 weighted MRI, is because of leaky new capillaries. Delayed phase. Now coming to the regular what image you see on when you refer for a bone scan. That is, you will see a skeleton. Why it happens? The tracer accumulation synthesis to new bone formation during mineralization phase. New bone synthesis first happens is secretion of osteoid by osteoblast and then mineralization of osteoid by calcium and phosphate. So here the binding happens with MDP and fluorinated. So in bone mineralization, the first phase is osteoblast precursors recruited in the area needing bone by locally released growth factors. The growth factors which you know are oncology wise, you will be reading OPG, osteoprotegrin, and rank, receptor activated nuclear kinase, a ligand. So when the OPG is more, there will be stimulation of osteoblast. When the rank is more, there will be stimulation of osteoclast. When they are in balance, the bone will look normal. When OPG is more and rank is suppressed, you have sclerotic lesions. When OPG is less and rank is more, you get lytic metastasis. When there is only a rank and complete suppression of OPG, you get pure lytic metastasis. So this is differentiate to secrete osteogenic organ matrix and non-collagenous proteins. So what we are discussing with dealing and detecting with bone scan is osteoblastic activity. Whether that osteoblastic is activity is physiological, pathological, or what do you call neoplastic, physiological, inflammatory, or malformation. All these things from non-specific to specific, you need to know how a bone is formed, wisdom of identifying the type of formation, and experience to say whether it is relevant or not. Any investigation is non-specific. To add specificity, we should know what is the what is how that scan is performed, whether how the signal is attained, and whether the signal is attained by because of which process, and the experience to say whether it is relevant or not. So knowledge, wisdom, and experience, all three contribute in identifying a lesion. Now coming to the types of bone formation. There are four types of bone formation. That is lamellar bone formation, endochondral bone formation, reactive bone formation, and the neoplastic bone formation. The lamellar bone formation, it occurs. This is the pathology, histopathology behind that. Occurs during bone remodeling. For us, everybody thinks that bone is a static structure. No, bone is a dynamic structure. there will be continuous resorption, formation. Resorption, formation. It depends on, if you have gone through your college general anatomy, it is because of Wolff's law, stress and strain. If you check the two bones of tennis player of right arm and left arm, there will be much difference because the stress and strain will be on the hand he is using it for playing. The cancellous bone is very active. It replaces 25% per year. Cortical bone replaces 2% per year. But the volume of the cortical bone is very high. The volume of the cancellous bone is low. That's why bone scan looks uniform. So, functions of remodeling. Remodeling removes injured bone. There is reinforcement in areas of stress. That is what I was saying. Remodeling is needed for calcium homeostasis. When there is hypocalcemia, there will be resorption. When there is adequate calcium and along with vitamin D3, there will be formation. So, this calcium homeostasis is also important. Why in oncology do you know calcium homeostasis? Hypercalcemia, you know, which is one of the medical emergencies in oncology. One of the causes of hypercalcemia can be a paraneoplastic condition, that is because of parathormone related peptide. Normally, tumor lysis syndrome causes hypocalcemia, that is also an emergency. Paraneoplastic conditions or conditions associated with syndromes like MEN2, MEN1. MEN1 neuroendocrine tumor, but MEN2 also can be associated with parathyroid adenoma. This will cause hypercalcemia. You should know the management of hypercalcemia and hypocalcemia as a part of oncology emergencies. So what happens in remodeling? Osteoclasts resorb cavity of bone and the osteoblast fill the cavity with new bone. The process is initiated by piezoelectricity. There is resorption cavity formed and there is that the new bone is formed. When osteoclasts done their job, they signal to the osteoblast, attracting them to resorption cavity. Signaling of osteoblast is called as coupling. Growth factors such as TGF beta or IGF stimulate this. What happens in normal individuals? Does bone remodeling happen in normal individuals also? Yes, but it does not alter the mass of the skeleton. 12% of cancerous bone is covered by actively mineralizing bone. That's why the bones we can see normal bones also. Diphosphonate uptake during bone remodeling is very low and uniform throughout. So, a bone scan, you are seeing the normal bones because there is continuous remodeling. The remodeling is the reason for the bone to take up methylene diphosphonate. So only methylene diphosphonate goes and concentrate in newly forming bones, and all the bones have some amount of new bone formation. That is because of dynamic structures. That is because of regular remodeling at the areas of stress and strain, calcium homeostasis, and remodeling, that is the injured bone removal. All these things cause remodeling, and diphosphonate uptake during bone remodeling is very low and uniform throughout. That's why the rest of the diphosphonate is excreted. This excretion, you see bone scan, you see kidneys. So when you inject MDP, only 50% goes to the bone. When the rest of it is excreted through the kidneys and bladder. If nothing is going to the kidneys and bladder, that is called as super scan. This can happen in metastasis, or this can happen in metabolism, hypermetabolism, that is high turnover bone diseases, increase the rate of remodeling. Although osteoblastic and osteoclastic activity are increased, amount of bone formed is less than the amount removed. Therefore, high turnover diseases characterized by osteopenia. What are the generalized high turnover bone diseases? Primary hyperparathyroidism, that is PTH. PTH continuously causes resorption of bone. The Because of that, there will be hypercalcemia. In hyperparathyroidism, why should you know? I already, as I said, it is a part of MEN, multiple endocrine neoplasia. MEN1 is parathyroid, pituitary, and pancreatic. MEN2 is medullary carcinomothyroid, pheochromocytoma, and parathyroid hyperplasia. It may also be associated with parathyroid adenoma. Renal osteodystrophy. The renal osteodystrophy, when there is vitamin D3 is not synthesized, then there will be hypocalcemia because calcium absorption is impaired. Once there is hypocalcemia, that will PTH will signal. And the other thing is type 1 postmenopausal osteoporosis. In these conditions, the resorption is also increased, the formation is increased, but resorption is increased manifold than compared to formation, leading to lucent areas but increased uptake on the bone scan. These are the general high turnover bone diseases. Apart from parathyroid adenoma, there is paraneoplastic conditions, especially if you have seen squamous, a few squamous cell carcinoma of lung and all secrete PTHRP, that is parathormone related peptide. It can be a paraneoplastic. You should be aware of all the paraneoplastic endocrine manifestations. A good doctor will easily identify all the paraneoplastic conditions, endocrine, neurological, hematological, so that you will not miss those. And treating the primary itself is the treatment for those things. Especially a general physician should be more aware about this paraneoplastic because patients may present with paraneoplastic condition than primary pathology. This in few cases. This is dynamic versus adynamic bone disease. Here, because there is too much of PTH, there is complete resorption and as well as formation. I said PTH plays a crucial role in calcium homeostasis. But when you supplement too much of calcium and vitamin D3, especially in renal failure patients, there is the PTH falls below a certain level where there is no resorption. So when there is no resorption, there is no formation because for formation to occur, there should be some resorption cavity. Because there is no resorption cavity, there will be no formation. That's why the tracer will not get excreted into the body, leading to uh, increased background that is called as adynamic bone disease. It is seen in especially renal failure patients who are on calcium and vitamin D supplementation. And this is seen in patients of either primary, secondary, or tertiary hyperpara or type 1 postmenopausal osteoporosis or those who are having a manifestation that is a paraneoplastic manifestation. So coming to the let me go through the altered this thing. I'll show you. This is a clear case of uh, see you have this Rugger jersey spine, you call it as Rugger jersey spine. The Rugger jersey spine, you have an area of increased uptake, an area of lucency, another area of increased uptake. So this is seen typically in uh, this is called as renal osteodystrophy. The rugged spine strips followed by lucent strips. This is rugged spine seen in renal osteodystrophy. Focal high turnover bone diseases. This is very important to identify which cause focal high turnover bone diseases. So the resorption exceeds formation that results in osteopenia. Because osteoblastic activity is increased, there is increased tracer accumulation. Therefore, imbalanced high turnover state result in contradictory pattern of radiolucent zone that accumulates radiotracer concentration. For this, we need history. So disuse atrophy. Suppose a patient is bedridden or he is amputated. That area, if you see, if you have a patient who is amputated, especially for sarcomas, this is what happens when young first year, second year PGs report. What they report is, sir, amputated limb, above the amputated limb, say up to tibia is amputated, then they say whole femur is showing uptake, sir. Then I say that could be because of disuse atrophy. You have to rule out, especially those with polio. When the entire bone is showing uptake, then you should always consider focal osteoporotic syndromes. Here, the resorption is much more than formation. But because the patient is not using certain limb or certain part of the body, there is resorption. The resorption exceeds formation. But the form because the resorption is increased 10 times, the formation is increased 2 times only, but it is much more than the normal. So you will see a hotspot on bone scan. That's why it will people tend to write it as this thing. So at the same time, you should see whether there is osteopenia in that area and see if it is and if there is disuse atrophy. Another thing is reflex sympathetic dystrophy, that is chronic regional pain syndrome. It is unlikely that they meet an oncologist. This is common with rheumatology and orthopedics. Alkodystrophy is transient osteoporosis. This also is uncommon with oncology colleagues. It is transient osteoporosis of hip is a common condition where it is called as algodystrophy, where there is resorption, there is lucency, and there is show increased osteoclastic resorption, hyperemia, and bone marrow edema. Overlapping clinical features is reversibility of the height turnover with time to restoration. Then there is reflux bone dystrophy, which is unrelated from oncology side, but especially after injury, you can see. And osteosclerosis. Now you have seen lamellar bone formation where the resorption is increased 10 times, formation is increased only 2 times. But sometimes the resorption is increased 10 times, the formation is increased 30 times. So when the resorption cavity is formed, too much of osteoblastic activity starts. This type is seen in Paget's disease. This Paget's disease is a high turnover which favors osteoblastic activity. What is the importance in oncological perspective? The Paget's disease you should know because Paget's disease can mimic a metastasis from uh, prostate cancer. However, if the patient is a known case of prostate cancer or is not known, the treatment of Paget's disease is bisphosphonates only. So that's where the management may not differ if it is a known prostate cancer. But if it is not a known prostate cancer, then you should rule out Paget's before labeling it as a metastasis. Another thing is the Paget's disease of bone can transform into a malignancy. Osteosarcoma is known to happen in Paget's disease of bone. That is why you should know to read an X-ray and say whether there is malignant transformation. If you are suspecting malignant transformation in a Paget's disease of bone, then you should order for a bone scan and FDG both together. Bone scan shows abnormal increased tracer concentration. The histological hallmark is mosaic pattern. This is how a Paget's look. There is expansion of the bone, intense uptake, and the similar lesions can be seen in metastatic prostate cancer, this intense lesion. But the difference is in metastatics, there will be no expansion and they will be predominantly more sclerotic and along with the PSA rise and all this. But they both can coexist because Paget's is also a disease of old and prostate cancer is also a disease of old. So in those cases, you may need to take an expert opinion. And Paget's, the treatment is bisphosphonate because we are going to stop the osteoclastic activity. When there is no resorption, there will be no formation. So there will be this will not there. The Paget's also can lead to hypercalcemia, thickened trabeculae, and expansion of the bone. Now, stress fracture. A stress fracture is not an accumulated of traumatic microfractures, but continuous repair process. This is how a stress fracture looks on a bone scan. It can be so intense sometimes that it may mimic metastasis. What I am trying to say is all that is hot is not metastatic. All that is cold is not benign. But most of the time, stress fracture will rarely be seen in oncology patients. The reason behind is most of the oncology patients are not athletes and unless the any young oncology patient who is doing a lot of exercises, you will not see this. You will see in police recruits and all. So now we have seen first type of bone formation, that is lamellar bone formation. The lamellar bone formation is because of a regular process of resorption and formation. When the lamellar bone formation is high, you call it can be due to renal osteodystrophy, hypopara, or type 1 postmenopausal osteoporosis. It is low, then it is adynamic bone disease. Focally, there may be increased bone formation either with lucency or sclerosis. With lucency, we see in transient osteoporosis, oligodystrophy, reflex osteodystrophy, diffuse atrophy. And with sclerosis, we see in Paget's disease and stress fracture. Now, endochondral ossification. It is a normal process. Osteoid is deposited on pre-existing cartilage. Continuous endochondral ossification at epiphyseal plates is responsible for longitudinal growth. The height for that, you need endochondral ossification. Therefore, if you see a patient in pediatric bone scan, there is increased uptake at the epiphyseal plates. And in some types of tumors, especially blastomas, either it could be a neuroblastoma, nephroblastoma, retinoblastoma, or hepatoblastoma, these tumors tend to metastasize at the metaphyseal ends. That's why looking both are important. This is how endochondral bone formation, that is, it is on the cartilage. Chondral means on the cartilage. Endo is on the cartilage it is formed. So you can see this is how a bone scan of a child looks. It looks, you can see there is increased uptake in the metaphyseal end. Some neoplasms, especially the cartilaginous neoplasm, undergo some ossification but disorganized. Osteochondroma, it is benign. What happens is the epiphyseal plate displaced beneath the periosteum. So that's why exostosis antam kada, we call it as exostosis. That is osteochondroma. As bone lengthens, a bony protuberance grows by endochondral ossification. It can be sessile or pedunculated. During growth, cartilage cap undergoes continuous endochondral ossification. Therefore, cartilage cap accumulates radioactive trash similar to epiphyseal plate. This is endochondral. This is endochondral bone formation. Nothing happened. The epiphyseal plate has slipped here. It is growing because the function of the cartilage is to ossify. So you will see that. So the another example of exostosis in the tibia, like that. This is it is called as osteochondroma or exostosis. These are benign things, but there can be malignant transformation in this. Enchondroma, instead of going under the periosteum, if it is going into the medullary canal, it is enchondroma. En and inside cartilage tumor. A tumor of the cartilage which is present inside. X means outside. Inside what? Medullary cavity. So there will be growth until skeletal maturity. This is common in the phalanges and endochondral bone. A new bone is formed there. The reason here, the thing here is the spics and the type of calcification is different here. There is another thing, chondrosarcoma. A sarcoma is nothing but a malignancy arising from the mesenchymal structures. The cartilage, the malignancy arising from the mesenchymal structure, like cartilage, is chondrosarcoma. Ossification of cartilage, focal and disorganized. Well differentiated tumors show more calcification. The poorly differentiated do not show. The well differentiated lesions are showing MDP avidity, and poorly differentiated show FDG avidity. So this is a tumor of the card. That's this type of speculations and calcifications is typical of chondrosarcoma. Now you came to know there are first two types, lamellar and endochondral. Lamellar you have due to normal bone formation. It is needed because of calcium homeostasis. It is needed for bone remodeling. It is needed for stress injury repair and all. This lamellar bone formation is normal, which happens. That is the reason MDP gets concentrated. Then in the lamellar, if it is increased, high turnover like renal osteodystrophy and type 1 menopausal. If it is low, it is adynamic bone disease. Then it can be, there is diffuse. If it is focal, you have focal increased bone formation with lucency and focal increased bone formation with sclerosis. With lucency, we need transient osteoporosis of a oligodystrophy, diffuse atrophy and all. With this thing, sclerosis we see in Paget's disease or stress fracture. A reactive bone formation formed due to bone's response to injury. Many forms of injury, trauma, ischemia, infections, and neoplasm. The two principal patterns are appositional and zonal. Appositional is accompanied by proliferation of granulation tissue in medullary canal. Osteoarthritis and osteonecrosis characterized by intramedullary granulation tissue and deposition of appositional bone. Bone is deposited on existing trabecula and bone density increases. Radioactive tracer concentration accumulates in the repair process. See, this oppositional bone formation you did not know. This is the most commonly seen with OA, osteoarthritis, and osteonecrosis, which are both arena of orthopedicians. So this you can leave it oncological perspective for just completion sake. Reactive bone formation can be oppositional or zonal. Mm, and this oppositional seen in osteoarthritis, osteonecrosis. Then zonal is when the periosteum is elevated because of anything. When the periosteum gets elevated, it's like when somebody hits you, you hit them back. When the periosteum is elevated, it hits. But how does it hit? By new bone formation. That is in response to lytic bone processes. There is sclerotic rim around lytic lesions if it is benign. If it is not benign, then you will have lytic lesion without sclerotic rim. Last time I said margins. So last time I said site, transition zone, age, matrix, margins, periosteal reaction, and soft tissue component. Like that is what we are looking here. Intense uptake will be there in the area if there is lysis and formation of new bone. Resorption process initiated by osteoclastic activating factors. This is what happens in bone metastasis. In bone metastasis, there will be resorption. How the resorption? There are bone tumors which spread to the what you call marrow have two properties. Either they stimulate rank, either they stimulate rank, or they stimulate OPG. If they stimulate rank much more than OPG, then you will have lytic metastasis. If they stimulate OPG much more than rank, then you have sclerotic. If rank is stimulated, lytic. If OPG is stimulated, sclerotic. That is the osteoblastic activity is coupled to osteoclastic activity. So this is the tumor microenvironment in the medullary cavity which dictates whether the patient is going to have lytic metastasis or sclerotic metastasis or pure lytic metastasis where the rank is stimulated, but rank is nothing but receptor activated nuclear kinase which stimulates the osteoclastic activity. Whether that is stimulated and it suppresses OPG. That is OPG is osteoprotectin. Intense osteoblastic activity. It is slow growing lesion. Reactive bone in sclerotic at periphery reflex healing response. So this is lytic metastasis. Do there are lysis, there is some sclerosis surrounding it. So this you will see intense uptake. Do the lysis is predominant, it will show sclerosis also. But sometimes osteomyelitis, some pure lytic lesions without any uptake, then more in favor of myeloma or very aggressive neoplasm. Highly aggressive neoplasm produce lysis. We can see the matrix is soft tissue matrix. There is a breach of the cortex, and here these areas are having some sclerotic rim, but still there is a matrix, is soft tissue matrix. So this is clearly metastasis, and in this metastasis you are seeing intense uptake. In osteomyelitis also, what happens in osteomyelitis? There is myelitis is the osteomyelitis is nothing but it is a infection of the marrow, bone marrow. Then why we are seeing on the bone scan, which doesn't go to the marrow? The bone marrow causes when it is inflamed, pallor, rubor, dollar are functional acia. Apart from that, there will be edema. When there is dollar, that is edema. When there is edema, the endosteum gets stretched. When I said whenever the bone is stretched, either endosteum or periosteum, it hits back. But the way of hitting back is by new bone formation. That's why there will be new bone formation. So reactive bone formation can be happening in osteomyelitis as well as lytic metastasis or this thing. So now we have seen three types of bone formation. That is lamellar, endochondral, and reactive. Lamellar is seen in normal bones. It can be diffusely increased or diffusely decreased, and focally increased with sclerosis, with the lucensis or lysis, focally increased with sclerosis. Then endochondral, it can happen in the cartilage, normal aging process, and I mean aging process means in children, not in old, and it can be because of misplaced cartilage or cartilaginous tumors. Then there is reactive bone formation. One is oppositional, that is because of the stress and strain, and the other is because of zonal. Zonal is because of the lifting of the periosteum or endosteum. Periosteum lifting normally happens, endosteal elevation or periosteal elevation can happen with metastasis and myelitis. And the last is neoplastic bone formation. This is bone tumors per se, the primary bone tumors that can be benign, like osteoid osteoma, osteoblastoma. The difference is only the size in osteoid osteoma and osteoblastoma and osteosarcoma. It is a malignant. There should not be any difference in osteoid synthesis by non-neoplastic or neoplastic. This is osteoid osteoma. This shows intense uptake, but there is sclerosis and narrow zone of transition. When it is narrow zone of transition and solitary, you should always suspect osteoid osteoma also. Amount of radioactivity depends on amount of osteoid synthesis. Some extremely osteoblastic tumors accumulate large amounts of tumors. This is osteosarcoma. The contraindications for bone scan are pregnancy and lactation because do no harm and is our principle. If you have any questions, I am ready to answer. This is osteosarcoma, osteoblastoma, osteoid osteoma, or osteoblastoma. Both are same except for the size. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. It was really nicely explained. Sir, I have a question that uh, given a choice between PET scan and bone scan,
Hmm.
how to make a decision what modality to use, bone scan and PET scan for bone lesions or metastasis?
Excellent question. The answer is it is case based. Suppose you are dealing with a you have only FDG as a PET agent. You can have gallium 68 PSMA. You can have F18 bone scan. You can have MDP. Based on availability, first thing, suppose you have a prostate cancer. The ideal will be PSMA PET. Okay. When the PSMA PET is not there, check the Gleason score. If it is low Gleason's, then the probability of having sclerotic metastasis will be high. Then go for F18 sodium fluoride bone scan. That is also on PET. If that is not available, go for MDP bone scan. Okay. Then uh, if it is PSA is very high, then you can directly go for Gleason score is very high, that is poorly differentiated, you can go for FDG also. So if you are expecting lytic metastasis, the FDG PET CT scores over bone scan. If you are expecting sclerotic metastasis, F18 bone scan or MDP scores over FDG PET. But if you have gallium 68 PSMA, it is better because it not only identifies the sclerotic bone metastasis, but also identifies the non visceral lesions, other visceral lesions apart from bone. So you give me a case, I'll say, suppose you are going for a CA breast, the ideal will be PET because if the PET CT can easily identify marrow metastasis as well as lytic metastasis as well as mixed secondaries. But if you are going for a only those tumors which produce predominantly sclerotic metastasis, in those cases FDG may not be of much use.
Okay. So, sir, if something is negative on PET scan, can that means should we again go for a bone scan or vice versa like that?
Very good. If a patient, if a malignancy has propensity for lytic metastasis and you did a bone scan, patient has then and patient still complains, then you can go for PET. But if it is a what do you call, if it has a sclerotic metastasis propensity, if you have done a PET CT, if it is negative, you can go for bone scan. But if it is lytic metastasis and FDG is negative, then you no need to do a bone scan again. I mean, if the tumor propensity, suppose you are dealing with lung cancer, no need to do a bone scan if your PET is negative.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
If
And sir,
it,
there are also questions in chat.
yeah, sure, anything. You mentioned polyostotic fibrous dysplasia in the case of lytic lesion in ribs, how to differentiate. Matrix. Those who have heard my last class, I said site, transition zone, age, matrix, margins, and periosteal reaction and soft tissue component. In polyostotic fibrous dysplasia, the lesion shows ground glass matrix a ground glass matrix, and low narrow zone of transition, and predominantly it happens in women, then we can easily identify polyostotic fibrous dysplasia. In suppose you are a radiation oncologist, you have a squamous cell carcinoma of cervix. If your PET is negative, there's no need to do a bone scan. If you have a squamous cell carcinoma of head and neck, if your PET is negative, don't need a bone scan. Unless the patient complains, you ask your nuclear medicine physicians to cover up to toes. Normally, we cover only up to mid thigh and only up to we don't cover below the elbow and below the tibia. So if you want to avoid a bone scan, ask them to cover that. That way you can avoid. Findings of bone scan myeloma. Excellent question. There are no findings because they are pure lytic lesions. You may not see any uptake on bone scan. In myeloma, doing a bone scan is waste. It is not useful at all. Bone scan should not be done in myeloma. The only indication for bone scan when you are suspecting fractures, when there is a fracture, it will show uptake. In myeloma, even if you go by IAWSG response criteria or any criteria, that is international IMWG, International Myeloma Working Group criteria or any criteria, there is no role of bone scan. For minimal residual disease, it is marrow or PET. There is no finding in bone scan. It appears sometimes if it is a large lesion, you may see a photon void area. Because in myeloma cells, they suppress the marrow. They suppress the bone formation by suppressing OPG. That is, OPG is osteoprotectin. If you read your what you call your textbook, radiation oncology textbook, you read Pares. In that Pares, you read there is a lot of literature about rank and OPG. This is bone microenvironment and how those metastases are formed.
Sir, in between bone scan and PET scan, so what is the basic difference? Is it is the tracer which we use, or the machine is different, or both?
It is a tracer because bone scan can be done on a PET machine also, that is with using F18. F18 sodium fluoride is the tracer used for formation. But if you conventionally bone scan is done in a gamma camera, FDG is done in a PET. That is MDP bone scan. If you ask MDP bone scan, it should be done on a gamma camera, and FDG is done on a PET CT camera. So both tracer and machine are different. But on PET machine also, nowadays we can do bone scan with using F18 sodium fluoride.
Okay, sir.
The basic pathophysiology is completely different. Okay, if there are no more questions, I have a few questions. So that bone-seeking agents detect tumor, metastasis, infection, or osteoblastic activity. Answer, please. D. Yes, osteoblastic activity. Only Siddhartha has answered. Next. They detect osteoblastic activity. That osteoblastic activity, whether it is physiological, pathological, if it is pathological, is it inflammatory, neoplastic, or degenerative, that we say. So, bone scan detects osteoblastic activity. All that is hot is not metastatic. All that is cold is not benign. 99M technetium MDP localizes in osteoblast, osteoclast, hydroxyapatite crystal, or medullary cavity. Yes, Siddharth, you are good. Correct. It is hydroxyapatite crystal. It binds to the hydroxyapatite crystal. Sclerotic osteoblastically quiescent. That is osteoblastically quiescent means you don't see anything on bone scan, but on CT you will see sclerotic lesion. What is it? Osteoid osteoma, osteoblastoma, multiple myeloma, or bone island? This you should know. On a CT, you see a sclerotic lesion. When you send for a bone scan, nothing will be there. What it is? No, multiple myeloma is lytic lesion, not a sclerotic lesion. You get a lytic lesion which is osteoblastically quiescent. Osteoid osteoma is very hot. I don't know who it is, read me. The osteoid osteoma is a bone forming tumor, shows intense osteoblastic activity. It is a bone island. Most of the bone islands we get, come with the CT. In the marrow, what happens is some amount of the cartilage goes into the marrow, like endochondral thing, but it is very small, so it doesn't form encarnoma. It is nothing but a bone island. A bone tissue in the marrow is bone island. The bone island is a benign thing, no need to worry about it. If you have multiple, then there is no question. Different, this is only for your encouragement, nothing else. Difference between the quack and a doctor is the later knows why and what. The earlier the former doesn't know. Without knowing also, he will give the treatment. But we should know and give the treatment. Thank choices of us. Thank you. Any more questions?
So thank you, sir. It was really wonderful and nicely explained. So we look forward to your next session, sir. So
Thank you. Bye.
thank you so much, sir. Thank you.